Thanks for clicking on episode 26 of Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars podcast, YouTube channel, show, whatever you want us to be, we can be that for you. That's because we want to appease you. I'm David, one of your hosts, and joining with me is not Jesse. We lost Jesse. Jesse changes, it's kind of like the seasons. Once every couple of months he comes around. But we have David Gilbert, and he's a cute one.
That's more important.
David, we're a little out of practice.
We missed last week.
We missed last week.
We were in Denver. And hit a couple comic book shops.
Several.
Which was awesome. That was a fun day.
Except Mile High. That place sucked.
That, when we walked in and they boast that there's 2 million comics and it's a great big warehouse, you think it's going to be really cool. And I was disappointed. I was let down. I was heartbroken. I left unsatisfied.
I thought this was going to be the place where I was going to find Star Wars #1, 1977. And I asked the guy at the counter, I'm like, hey, do you have this comic? He's like, yeah, we got 2 in the database. I'm like, no way. Like, what condition are they in? Both are near mint. Okay, great. I'm interested. How much are they? Well, let me take you back there. Oh, okay. So he walks me back to this other counter with all these short boxes, okay?
Short boxes?
And, yeah, it was like a bunch of short boxes, and then there were like long hallways of long boxes.
That's where they're keeping their...
Yeah, they're keeping the near mint comic book in boxes like this. So they pull it out, and they show me, and they're like, well, here you go. And I'm like, well, I don't know how much it is. Like, how much is it? Oh, it's $320.
What?
I go, okay, $320 for a comic book that they say is near mint, but the one corner was like jacked up. I'm not going to spend $340. I think it was $320 on a near. Like, that's ridiculous. I can go online and find it for $150. Mm-hmm. It just kind of. My only thing is, like, all their comics were like $20, $30 more than what they were worth. But you know what? If money's not an issue, go to Mile High. And when we showed up, we showed up, and like a couple hours ago, that some guy had dropped like $20,000 on 3 comics.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yep.
But you know what also is ridiculous, which I think is like a cool kind of ridiculous? Mm-hmm. The Star Wars Rebels Season 4 trailer. How about that thing?
That was really awesome.
That's the first topic of Real Talk. Yep. We're going to get right into that right now. Real Talk is the segment where we talk about everything that's movie and TV news related. And yes, Star Wars Rebels Season 4, the mid-season trailer hit the internet within the last couple of hours, really. And they're calling it the mid-season trailer. We can call it the finale trailer.
Sure.
Because there's going to be
nothing else after the season.
Right, it's done. The series, Dave Filoni gets to close out this series. And I was really, honestly, inspired and really excited for the rest of Season 4 to play out because of this trailer. David, I did a reaction video to this, so I'd like to know what you thought of the trailer.
So you know that I'm not up to date yet with this series.
I'm aware.
I'm like 4 or 5 episodes into Season 2. Mm-hmm. So what I loved about this season trailer is that it's not just what's coming up. It walks you back through the whole, little synopsis of the entire series thus far. Mm-hmm. So there are some spoilers in there, like I didn't know Kanan went blind, so shame on me for not knowing that. But that being said, the first minute of the trailer, I was able to say, oh, I remember that. That's really cool. That was a really neat scene. I probably slept through that one because I know the next one. But now I'm excited because of what's coming after that, because it got me excited about what I've already seen. So whoever put this trailer together, just kudos to them. But I think that's what I'm going to do the rest of the weekend, is kind of binge watch the rest of that series and get caught up on it. Because it's for free on Disney XD's website.
Yes.
So that's what I'm looking forward to. And was that the Emperor?
Briefly? It was the Emperor. And a fun fact about that is, leading up to this point, Sam Witwer, the voice actor who did Maul, who also did the Emperor, had been doing the Emperor. Okay. Sam Witwer is not doing the Emperor. They brought back Ian McDiarmid to voice the Emperor.
Seriously?
So there's a couple lines in there that you hear the Emperor speak.
It's something along the lines of like, Ezra Bridger, finally mine at last, or something?
Yes. And it's Ian McDiarmid. They brought him back. And there was some speculation about...
That's so cool.
Man, I want to say a year ago, but I know there was a story around the time of Star Wars Celebration Orlando that Ian McDiarmid was in the recording booth for something.
That's cool.
And so recently, Sam Witwer... I think it was actually like an hour or so after the trailer dropped, where he came out on Twitter and was like, listen, I hate to tell you this, but like I'm answering the question now, like I'm not voicing the Emperor, but I'll let you guess who is. And which is awesome, because like Sam is a big Star Wars fan, and he definitely supports that.
Do you think he's like heartbroken that he doesn't get to end this series?
Sam Witwer?
Yeah.
No, I think he's overjoyed that they were smart enough to use... If Ian McDiarmid's willing to come back... You use Ian McDiarmid, and Sam has always been very vocal with a lot of it. I've seen him; he does a lot of interviews. Now that I think about it, That guy's always being interviewed about Star Wars. But like he's always said, he's like, I do a good Emperor, but you're never going to be as good as
The original.
the actual Emperor. Like Ian McDiarmid is Emperor Palpatine. So really exciting to see him back, and excited to see how they use the Emperor in the series, because I thought in the trailer it was just the right amount. The first shot you get that close up of him, and then that last scene where it's Ezra, and then the hologram is a little elevated above him looking down. So there's speculation that, does Ezra go bad? Does Ezra join the dark side? Does he die at the hands of the Emperor? What is he doing does him and the Loth Wolves, do they they obviously don't take down the Emperor because we see him in the trilogy, but
I think something big is going to happen when they meet. I think it's going to be the end of Ezra as we know him.
I would be very satisfied if it was the Emperor that took down Ezra. I think that'd be a really cool ending. And also, I mean, keep in mind, it's Disney XD. They got to kill off these characters. There's a couple fans on the internet. I say a couple. There's probably a lot, but there's a couple tweets that I read earlier today where they were saying how they think that Kanan's going to be out after the first episode, which I don't agree with. But I think Kanan, Ezra, and Zeb are out. I think that would be fair.
So the very last line.
Yes.
When Ezra says, one last lesson.
Yes.
What do you think that lesson is?
Man, one last lesson would be, I don't know, man. You have to die at some point. Like, everybody dies. I don't know, but I think that's why I'm so excited about the series, is because that trailer did exactly what we needed, was give us that line to put us on the edge of our seat to see this.
Get me excited to get caught back up. So if anybody else out there is not caught up, watch it with me this weekend. Let's talk about it more when the episode comes out, February 18th.
So February 19th is when the episodes will first start to drop on Disney XD. They're going to do 2 episodes at a time, and then that'll be for 2 weeks. And then the last week that they have episodes, which will be in March, it's going to be a 90-minute special.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool. So basically, a movie is how they're going to end this series, and it's going to be exciting to see how Dave Filoni and company end this series, because again, we mentioned it before, they didn't get to close out Clone Wars the way they wanted to. It kind of got pulled out from underneath them. So it'll be great to see how Dave Filoni ends the series, and then of course see what he does after. See what he and his crew do after this project.
Because they have announced they're doing another series of some sort, right?
There's some project in the works, but we don't know anything about it. But I think to speculate about that is a couple weeks away. Let's enjoy this ride and what is Star Wars Rebels Season 4. It's going to be pretty awesome. What did you think about the trailer? Let us know down in the comments below, or you can post on Facebook, Twitter, or our Instagram. We have posts on there talking about the trailer and what we liked. So be sure to comment down below. Let's go on to the next subject of Real Talk, which is Disney and Lucasfilm released the official Solo: A Star Wars Story synopsis. Now, I'm going to read this to you, David, and I got to say, I think it's pretty lame.
I'm on the same boat. I mean, wow, they could not have told us anything less in this statement.
Board the Millennium Falcon and journey to a galaxy far, far away in Solo: A Star Wars Story, an all-new adventure with the most beloved scoundrel in the galaxy. A beloved scoundrel. Okay. Through a series of daring escapades deep within a dark and dangerous criminal underworld, Han Solo meets his mighty future co-pilot Chewbacca and encounters the notorious gambler Lando Calrissian in a journey that will be setting the course, in a journey that will set the course of one of the Star Wars saga's most unlikely heroes. Now, to me, that sounds like the board you read outside a really shitty Six Flags ride. I'm just gonna be real honest about it. That is just a really boring, lackluster synopsis. I feel like I'm at a theme park reading that.
That's like if somebody came up to me and asked me, you do this podcast, what's the movie about? That's the garble I would throw back at them, having only seen bits and pieces on the internet. Like, that's nothing. There is nothing in there that we haven't heard through Ron Howard's interviews or his Instagram, his social media.
So yeah, that's my favorite thing is when you read the synopsis on the official website, the page that was on StarWars.com, right below the synopsis, they're like, well, not much more information is available on this story right now, but if you want to go look at Ron Howard's social media, we've compiled all those photos for you to enjoy. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. That's your way you're going to release, because go ahead.
They're releasing this now, and 4 months we're still expecting a damn movie?
Yes. But now here's the thing. So they've released, this is the synopsis, so they've released it, and I don't quite remember them releasing a synopsis for the 3 previous movies. But I will tell you this, if this is here, that means that the marketing will begin soon. If Disney and Lucasfilm is pushing out the synopsis, here's a little something. Hopefully that means we're going to get a trailer soon. But I'll tell you this, what I would have hoped to get in a synopsis is, journey back 5 years before, A New Hope, where we go to this planet, and we, set the scene more. Don't give me this paintbrush viewpoint of the movie. Take me to I don't know, some planet, Corellia. Take me, deep in the I don't know.
There are so many people that I've talked to who do not need this movie, do not need somebody who's not Harrison Ford playing Han Solo. They would almost do better if they were selling me a movie on the Millennium Falcon. See the Millennium Falcon save Wookiees from the Kessel mines and partake in the Kessel Run.
See,
that would have been more exciting than this garbage that they just. What is Disney trying to accomplish by still pushing this movie out in May? I don't get it.
Well, if the movie is able to be done, great. But it does make me a little uncomfortable that we're almost at the end of January, and we don't have the trailer. But I mean, if they're doing some mild reshoots, there was a report that the movie had to go back for a few reshoots, and they still think they can slide those in and get it done by May. That's great, but I think when you start talking about that kind of a situation, it reminds me of a Justice League scenario where I get in the movie theater, I watch a movie, and there's points where I don't feel like they finished it. Like the CG's not 100%, or it's clearly green screen. But you know my stance, and if you watch the show, that you know my stance, which is I firmly believe that this movie should have always been slated for a December release, and it should be pushed back for a December release.
We talked about it a couple weeks ago, but we didn't go too in-depth on one of the stories. But there's some other nerd movies that they thought would do well on such short notice of marketing. Things like Jonah Hex, Ghostbusters, the last one with the 4 gals in it, and they all were not considered box office successes. So if we're looking at this niche of people who like the sci-fi stuff, and we've seen it over and over again with 5 or 6 different movies where they don't market it well, the movies just flop. Is Disney setting themselves up to be in that same boat? And if they are they doing it on purpose? Because it's right next to several other big movies coming out. Are they trying to compete with that against themselves? I don't see what they're thinking by doing this in May.
I think this movie is not going to make nearly as much money compared to Rogue One and the 2 saga films.
I don't think it needs to.
But you want the movie to make some kind of profit. I mean, you think about it, with Chris Lord, Phil Miller, then Ron Howard taking it over, and then if Ron Howard has to do some reshoots, now you're basically talking about shooting 2 movies. So what's the budget on this thing? We don't know. But we know that for a movie to make profit at the box office, it has to make 2.5 times the amount spent. Okay? So you want this movie to make money. You don't want them to lose money. And there's people on the internet saying, Kathleen Kennedy needs to be removed. She's not going to get removed. Kathleen Kennedy at the helm of Star Wars, since they bought it from Lucas, has already made back the money that they spent to buy it from Lucas.
$9 billion.
Well, that's the franchise overall, but I mean, it's the $4.whatever billion it was from Lucas. But that's my point. She's not going anywhere, nor does she really need to.
I don't
but
want to see her leave.
It is poor strategy, I think, to put this movie in May. I'm thinking this movie makes maybe $400 million, and that's a lot of money. But it's not a lot of money when you can compare it to the fact that it's a Star Wars movie. You compare it to the 3 previous Star Wars movies, and then how much money they've had to invest in getting a new director, basically shooting as much as 80% of this movie. Ron Howard made an appearance on TV within the last 10 days. They didn't call him the co-director of Star Wars, a Han Solo movie, or whatever the hell the movie is. They call him the director of Solo. Like, Phil Lord, Chris Miller, out of the picture entirely. This movie is his. So I think if Ron Howard, who is a veteran director, says, this is a good movie, I'm comfortable with keeping the May date, I'll have confidence in Ron.
I still think they're making a mistake.
Okay, well,
just me. A good movie or not, if they have a good movie and nobody knows about it,
4 months, there's time to inject it. I mean, here's the thing is, in 4 months you can still throw the trailer out there. I think it's going to come before the Super Bowl because they're not going to pay money. They're not going to pay Super Bowl money to run the trailer when they can post it any day and they can break the internet. So you get that, and you have your 15 TV spots.
You see, I think they need to spend the money to do a Super Bowl trailer. If they want to advertise this still and try to compete with the other movies coming out, it needs to be everywhere. It needs to be on every Facebook ad. It needs to be on every YouTube ad. It needs to be on subways. It needs to be on kids' toys in every restaurant. It needs to be plastered everywhere for 4 straight months if they're going to be successful, I think.
No, we'll see what happens. We'll only know come May. But you know what this movie needs to bring, along with a strong marketing push here at the end here? It also needs to bring warmth. And apparently that's what Ron Howard has brought to the Han Solo movie. It's our next topic here in Real Talk. We're talking about the solo actress Phoebe Waller-Bridge, a story that she did. And this one, she did the story originally from IGN, but we found out about it through StarWarsNewsNet.com. Check them out. There's no better site to go learn about what's going on in the Star Wars world. But Phoebe talks about the impact of Howard coming onto the project and how did it impact the tone. And she says, quote, "The handover there was done with such warmth and generosity from everybody. And Ron's just a master of his craft. He's going to make a beautiful film out of it." And she said of the transition between directors, you just really trust him, and it was just really exciting to work with him. I mean, it would have been exciting to just pass him in a corridor, let alone for him to be parachuted into the film you're working on. When asked how much her role was reshot compared to Lord and Miller's version of the film, she says, "We done some really, really great stuff with Chris and Phil that everyone was really thrilled with, and I think a lot of that will still be in it." So you hear this, and it seems like it's nothing but confidence from Phoebe Waller-Bridge. How does it make you feel?
I chuckle when she describes, when Ron Howard parachutes into the movie. I mean, is he entering a war zone? Could he just not, comfortably drive up to the front lines?
I think it was a little tense of a situation when you fire Lord and Miller,
Two directors in one conversation. So I don't know. I like the way she described that. I don't know if she did it on purpose or if she was trying to, allude to something there. But she's playing a droid, DDBD, and it'll be interesting to see if she's going to make beeps and boops or if she's going to actually, have conversations.
Looking forward to a female droid. That's going to be interesting. We get C-3PO, we get BB-8, we get K-2SO.
It's a small club.
Yeah, but it's nice to see that it get expanded. I will tell you this, like we just said a moment ago, if Ron Howard has reshot as much or more than 80% of this movie, I'm really not sure how much of her stuff is there. I'm sure the character is still present.
She seems to think that a lot of the stuff that she'd already filmed with Lord and Miller is still going to be in the movie, so...
We'll see, and it sounds like it's pretty much a side character, a support character, like most droids play in the movie, but still cool to hear from the set and from a cast member that transition, at least with the cast, was pretty smooth. And, I made the comment earlier about it being a tense situation to enter. Yeah, there's a lot of money invested into these projects. I'm sure it's a little stressful to know that you've gone almost 6 months and you're having to basically start all over. But it is nice to know that it seems like it was a professional exit and entrance. Phil Lord, Chris Miller leave. Ron Howard comes in and he kind of brings that veteran experience and kind of brings that everything's going to be all right vibe to this set, which is exciting to know. I'm really excited for that movie. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm excited to see a Ron Howard Star Wars movie. I think it's going to be an absolute blast. I know that we always talk about how hesitant we are about the movie, and we're not getting a trailer yet, and the marketing's not there, and this could be a colossal disaster. But
I'm still going to see it.
Hope. Yeah. They're going to get our money, right? Because it's not like we're paid by Disney or Lucasfilm. We're just fans. We just like it.
If I could figure out how I could get my office to direct deposit straight to Disney, that way I don't have to, buy movie tickets. I can just walk right through the door.
But then you can afford that lavish apartment that you have.
Yeah, all 1 bedroom of it.
Oh, but you have a nice living room. It's nice. Hey, that next topic of Real Talk, we're going to talk about The Last Jedi. So, it's that movie that's behind us now.
Yeah.
It's Solo's next, but...
walking away, but it's still in the rearview mirror.
A little Last Jedi news. And what's kind of funny here is China does not like The Last Jedi, apparently. So, China decides it's basically just taken The Last Jedi out of theaters. Opening week was an abomination. They're saying that the movie's only going to make about $50 million
in China.
In China. Sorry, I was trying to channel our president. Not a good impression. But the thing about it is that's that's to me terrifying. Because how many people live in China? Like that is
just over 1 billion.
Yeah, you should
eighth of the world's population.
Make a lot more than $50 million, and a lot of people aren't freaking out about this because at this point it's the highest grossing film of 2017. And the franchise, like you mentioned a little while ago in the show, that the franchise has now crossed the $9 billion mark, which is pretty cool. And I think The Last Jedi is right around $1.4 billion right now. I think if it would have had a good reaction in China, it probably could have made, 1.6, 1.7. I don't think it was ever going to cross 2, but I think it's kind of a big deal that it's a flop, like, it's not good in China. And I don't think it's a cultural difference thing, because the Chinese people have enjoyed Star Wars since it came out in 77. So I don't want to be, there are some people where I think it's a valid argument to be had. I just don't agree with it. I don't think this is cultural difference. I think this is like looking at this movie and the fans just did not connect. Although, now that I think about it, Rogue One did have Chirrut and Baze. Two Chinese... They were two Chinese actors, right? Mm-hmm. So that probably was very attractive overseas in Asia. But, you also have, like, there's Asian characters in The Last Jedi. I don't know. I'm not sure why that exists. Are you concerned that it's one of the large... You don't care? No, it doesn't... Am I just blowing smoke up a...
This conversation just doesn't interest me.
Oh.
Yep, sorry, bud.
You have no opinion on it flopping and it being a financial success anywhere else?
No.
Okay, I guess it doesn't matter.
Here's the thing. Star Wars is going to do what it does. Disney has made it known that what they want, they're going to do. And it doesn't matter what the rest of us want. We just spent 20 minutes bitching about Solo and the lack of advertising and marketing, but Disney doesn't care. They're still going to move through. So I think Disney needs to learn a lesson from this and figure out why it is they didn't do well. I don't know if it's because the plot wasn't there, if they didn't market well enough. If they're marketing the Last Jedi the way they're marketing Han Solo, not really surprised. I think before I'd actually make an opinion on this, I'd want to delve deeper and figure out why it sucked. Were they competing against other movies? Were there lack of resources available to promote it? Were people just that turned off of the...
Maybe that's something we should have done before we did the show.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. That's not our job. That's not our job to do. But yeah, it is interesting. I'll be curious to know if Lucasfilm or Disney does a poll over in China and other Asian countries to find out where the disconnect is.
We're not talking about it, but there was some article I was reading about a week ago, and it was talking about the most divisive and the least divisive Star Wars movies.
Yes.
In terms of population consensus on whether it's a good movie or not. They were saying that Gareth Edwards' Rogue One is the least divisive movie, that everybody just genuinely thinks
it's a great movie.
But then out of all 9 now that we have, that The Last Jedi is the most divisive. People love it or hate it.
Well, they took some risks. Yeah.
And so, I don't know, maybe they just...
Isn't that crazy, though? In the last 5 years, you've had the most divisive and the most agreed-upon Star Wars story. That's pretty cool. Yeah, okay, I can roll with that. We should do maybe a video where we talk about what we, outright... Well, we kind of always, every episode, say Empire's the best Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't really do that.
The more I watch it, Rogue One moves up.
Yeah.
The Last Jedi's moved down a couple notches.
Okay. You see the truth. I'm not biased at all. You know what every Star Wars movie features that I love?
Oh, music?
Music. And it's John Williams music.
And it's gorgeous.
And even when Michael Giacchino only gets to do 3 weeks for the soundtrack for Rogue One, he spritzes in a little of that John Williams magic. I'm excited to say that John Williams is going to be doing the soundtrack for Episode 9. It broke a couple of weeks ago. We just weren't able to get it on the episode, but it did break. And Williams has composed every live-action Star Wars movie, with exception to Rogue One. And like I said, that's Michael Giacchino.
His themes, but not his score.
Yeah, and you know what, though? Side note, I think the Rogue One soundtrack is growing on me. You have to really have...
Because you've been talking garbage
for
over a year
but
now.
I have to accept the guy only had 3 weeks. And if he was able to give me a little nostalgia and a little of his own, it's all good. And he's supposed to be the guy that takes over after Williams dies.
See, to me, it still sounds like Star Wars.
It does.
We don't have any new sweeping themes in there, but...
But here's the thing: is like Williams is 85 years old, pushing 86.
Next month.
So here's my, we only have so much time left with John, and I'm really happy to know that if anything from the original era can be with the sequel trilogy when it wraps, it's John Williams composing that score. And there are some great pieces. There's no Duel of the Fates in the sequel trilogy, but I think of Rey's theme, I think of Kylo's theme. Great pieces of art that we'll get to enjoy, I'm sure, in some form here in Episode 9. Would it have been a mistake not to let John do this?
I think they needed to offer him the first chance, and if he chose not to do it, I think that would have been a shame, but I'm very excited that he's going to come back for it.
I like the fact that he said, they asked him, like, did you want to do it? He's like, well, I would very much like to do it. He doesn't want anyone else to touch Rey. When he learned about the character Rey, he wanted to come up with that theme, and you can hear and feel the passion he has for that character in her theme. So I think that's pretty cool. There's a quote here. He goes, "If your vision's still good and your hands, I have no arthritis in my hands and I play the piano very easily, I don't think there's any reason to deprive oneself of the fun of working. Music is so rewarding." The guy's pushing 86, like you said, next month. He's still young at heart, and this man has a passion for Star Wars, and I think it's a franchise overall that means a lot to him.
He is the most nominated person for an Academy Award with 50 nominations.
Well, think of all the franchises he's been in.
The only group that has more nominations than him is Disney with 59, and they're talking that Williams could potentially pick up 2 more nominations this year for The Post and for The Last Jedi.
He's this master. I don't think he wins for The Last Jedi. He might have a chance for The Post. But, no, that's awesome.
That's so impressive, though.
Well, and again, it's a legacy, and it's part of the spectacle that is Star Wars. You go back to 77, it was so controversial that they had a classical score for the movie. And now, you can't imagine anything else.
Whatever happens, when Williams decides he wants to be done working on Star Wars, I do not want Danny Elfman. Keep him the hell away from this franchise.
I don't think they're going to put Danny Elfman in there. They've said before, Michael Giacchino seems to be the next one in line to do the scores for the saga movies, which I'm kind of surprised by. We're going to talk about Kevin Kiner here in a little bit. He's the one that does the music for the Rebels, okay. Star Wars Rebels. And I think that guy has really done a great job of making Star Wars his own musically, but still paying homage to that original Williams score. But yeah, Michael Giacchino seems to be the one apparent. And if you see what he did in 3 weeks for Rogue One, it'd be nice to see what he can do in 4 months for a Star Wars movie. Yep. No, it'll be interesting to see. That's it for Real Talk. If you have any thoughts about John Williams signing on for Episode 9, be sure you let us know down in the comments below, or Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Pages, Pixels, Pieces. We kick off with 2 comics this week. First up is Star Wars 41. This is still the main run. We have Killian on this run with Salvador LaRocca, and we are on Jeddah. And I love this issue. I've really enjoyed the Jeddah arc in general, but I love this issue so much because you're taking Luke Skywalker at a point where it's not so much a New Hope era and it's more progressing towards Empire, but connecting it back to Rogue One. And he learns the story of Rogue One and the rebels that sacrifice themselves. David, you've read the comic. What do you think of the idea of Luke learning of Rogue One in this way?
I think it's a nice tie-in with the comics and the movies. That being said, the last couple issues of this story arc I've skimmed over. I haven't read. In fact, when I was putting my show notes together on my little piece of paper, because I'm laptopless today, my first line is, "I didn't get a chance to read it, and I don't care." Then I finally wrote down, "Screw it, I'll read it anyway." And so I did. And you know what I've decided? I don't like it.
You don't like the main run, or you don't like this arc?
I don't like this main run.
Okay.
I still can't get past the art. I spend the entire time not liking it, wanting to punch the characters in the faces. The concept of going to Jeddah, learning about what happened at Rogue One, learning about this cult of dark side enthusiasts, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But the way the comic is laid out, the way the art is, the way things just kind of fall into place, to me it's subpar.
LaRocca I love his cover art, but this is a recurring theme. If you watch the show consistently, you know that Dave and I have a real struggle with this art style that takes images of Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and kind of blends them into the comic, and they look so realistic, but then the backgrounds just look so dull and generic. and it kind of takes you out of that experience. Sometimes I tell myself, suck it up, you're reading a comic book. What's the big deal?
No,
but it's tough.
There were some cool fight scenes in there.
There
There's
were.
like a snow speeder just hanging out in Jeddah. Fight scene up in space. I mean, so it's like the elements are all there that it should really grab my attention. It just, I hate to say it, it doesn't, but
I do like the exploration of Luke. I think it's because I'm desperate for Luke and character growth there. I got burned by, Dawn of the Jedi? What is that garbage book? It's somewhere around here. It was supposed to be like the very last Legends book, but they made it the very first new canon book. And it's just, or Hair of the Jedi. It's just, yeah. Hair. I'm sorry, H-E-I-R.
Yes, the hair of the Jedi.
The Hair of the Jedi.
Blonde, flowing.
But, there's some good stories out there. Like, I think of, Shattered Empire. That's part of our giveaway for a 300 subscriber contest, which we're about to announce the winner of in the next week. Keep posted for that. I want to see Luke become that Jedi Knight where he's starting to acquire the abilities, acquire the skills, getting to the point where he can use the Force to get the saber out of the snow in the Wampus Cave in Empire Strikes Back. And I think you get glimpses of that, and that's why I say on top of the main run is because I think there's a character that I'm enjoying there. It is Luke. I don't think they capture Harrison Ford's Solo very well, and I kind of see. I think Leia is consistent, but again, I think back to that crate single shot that we had a couple weeks ago, and there was no consistency between that and the novel that came out. So I feel bad. We're really kind of going hard on this comic and not seeming to be a big fan of it. But if you're enjoying it, please let us know why you like it so much down in the comments below. A comic that we both are unanimously in agreement about. Darth Vader, Charles Soule, Giuseppe Camuncoli, they do some damn good work on the Darth Vader run.
I'd love to see their art with the main Star Wars line. I say that, but I don't want them to leave Darth Vader yet.
Well, you know why you like that, though, is because Giuseppe's art style is somewhat unique. It's personalized for the story. I don't feel like it's very personal when you're reading the main line, and it's these the imagery is so like the actors. You know what I'm saying? Like I said earlier, it takes me out of it. But Darth Vader, this run has its own style, and instead of Giuseppe's, and it's just stellar. And the story here is just stellar as well. We kind of have, it's the conclusion of this arc where she bites the dust.
Yep.
Another Jedi bites the dust. Kind of see Freddie Mercury up in the rafters of the Jedi Temple singing.
And I'm kind of glad she went out the way she did.
Yes.
Because watching just the prequel movies, you just kind of get this feeling that she's, an arrogant librarian who cares. But she's really proven herself in this, she's been in 3 issues now?
4?
4? Do we get a little bit of her? And yeah, she blew my expectations away.
And that's the thing, is so much depth with this character has been really exciting. And to me, I think this is one of my favorite Jedi Knights now because of the exploration in her background, and of course this forward story that she has after Revenge of the Sith. Because up until this arc, I thought she was dead at the end of Revenge of the Sith. I figured she got slaughtered in the library. So it's really cool to see that exploration. This issue starts out where she's using the lightsaber Kyber rifle. It goes out.
It burns up her lightsaber.
Yep, melts it. And she jumps out, trying to flee from the temple. Clones think that it's funny how, at this time, clone troopers don't know who Vader is. So they start firing at Vader while he's, up there, and he's just like, this is ridiculous. These clones are stupid. I don't know why we have them. I guess we need to go enlist volunteers to become our stormtroopers. That's not actually part of the story. I'm just making a joke. The fact that
he looks at one of the stormtroopers and says, "Did you tell your men, not to fire on me?" And it's like, so he just kills them all.
Oh yeah, he just throws them out of the Imperial security ship. It was awesome. That's a great scene, and I just like the idea that Jocasta Nu knows it's Anakin Skywalker under that mask and calls him Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
That to me is really. It's like the human level of Vader that you never knew existed because you never knew anyone knew who was under that mask. But she does, and she calls him Anakin relentlessly and basically saying, listen, we put our faith in you, and to see you be the destroyer of our order, I mean, I've got to end you. And it's great. It was really well done.
I love the scene where she's getting ready to dive backwards down into, I guess it's a ravine.
Yes.
Down to the dregs of the town.
Yeah.
And so she just like blindly falls backwards, and Vader with the Force just stops her and pulls her up to his ship. I just thought that was so cool.
Well, because he has to take her back to the Emperor. Now, whether or not he pulls that off, we'll let you know. But man, I also he gets the list of the Force sensitive kids. I enjoy that sequence of panels. I don't want to give that away, but there's a lot of treats. And if you go to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you read Darth Vader 10, we do have the translation of that list. So there's a list of like seven or eight names. We know the names of those Jedi and what planet they're from. There's like one from Dakar. There's one from there's one on Mustafar.
Okay.
So pretty interesting stuff. So if you want to check that out, check us out on Facebook. You'll find that list there. Last topic for Pages, Pixels, and Pieces here. Kevin Kiner, Star Wars Rebels Talk. We mentioned him earlier. Kevin Kiner has finished scoring Rebels Season 4, which makes sense. This came out about a week ago, and with the series about to kick back in here on February 19th, and then wrap up there in March. You'd hope it'd be finished. And all I wanted to say here is the fact that this guy has just crushed music for Star Wars with the Rebels series, and I really hope he gets more opportunity, whether that's with the next animated project or maybe with a future movie. I know before we've said that Michael Giacchino seems to be the guy, the heir apparent, but this guy just does some great work. What do you think?
I have like 2 seasons to catch up on, so I'll give you a better review next week when we talk about it.
I guess I'm spacing here, but I'm trying to remember. Yeah, okay. I wanted to verify this before I said it. He's also the guy who did the music for the Clone Wars, which but he was the guy who did the music with Clone Wars. He's been with Dave Filoni on both projects. So I mean, it's kind of an era of Star Wars music that we're getting here that spans about 10 years. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So glad to see him bring that in. It looked like Dave Filoni was pretty happy with the end result. The photo on the Twitter was a loth cat looking out over the orchestra, so that was kind of cool. So that's going to do it for Pages, Pixels, and Pieces. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns so far in this episode, drop us a comment, send us a tweet. We will respond, and if it's a really cool comment or question, we'll put it on the next week episode. That's how that works. Stashed or Blasted, 2 topics here real quick that we want to address. Rian Johnson explains the Force connection between Rey and Kylo. Now, David, before I weigh in on this, I want you to talk because this was one of your favorite aspects of The Last Jedi.
It was. To me, it was really fascinating to see the Force used in this way. Some of my friends call it a mind meld because, they're trying to rip off Star Trek, but Johnson in this article calls it a Force connection. Mm-hmm. So I guess we finally have like a title for what actually happened. But he said he basically used it just as a plot device because he wanted Rey and Kylo to talk to each other, and this was the way that he was able to do it. But then he also goes into depth a little bit more about the production of it, like because they're such intimate conversations, they actually did them in person. So when Mark Hamill and Daisy Ridley were just hanging out in Ireland filming at Act 2, they flew Adam Driver out there so that way he could be on set off screen to have those conversations. So they ended up having to film it twice on a couple of them.
Which I think probably made those scenes more effective for me. I really liked it. I mean, if you're just thinking aesthetically of how those scenes play out in the movie, it really sounds like a vacuum sucks the air out.
Yep. The editing, the sound with it, I thought was really great. And knowing just how much energy and force concentration it takes to meld these together, because Kylo even mentions that she can't be doing it, would kill her, and then Snoke says, it's me who put you together. I just think that's really cool that really strong Force users are able to do this. Makes me wonder what other ways Snoke has tried to do this before.
And Bob Duxay is I think I'm saying that right. That's the editor.
Yeah,
That's the editor who made those scenes working. Mm-hmm. I liked how simple they were. I saw some negativity. I don't get it. I mean, think back to Empire when George Lucas is tasked with trying to show you how Luke and Vader are communicating through the Force, mm-hmm. or Luke and Leia. And what is it? It's like a smear wipe between Vader and Luke. Vader on the Destroyer, Luke in the Falcon. I mean, it's just a smear wipe. I mean, it's a very simple thing. It's not the most creative thing, but it serves the purpose well. And just like this, I mean, it's just hard cuts. and I'm fine with it. It was great. I would love if there was a way in the comics, maybe, like what does that look like what does that look like through Kylo's eyes or through Rey's? Because like Rey could see a lot, where Kylo could only really see Rey. So I would be really interested in like a comic book adaptation of the movie to have a panel where you're looking at Rey and like what does that look like? I think that'd be really cool. I love all the I like how Rian Johnson is explaining a lot of things about The Last Jedi, why certain risks were taken, but it does kind of seem like it's a defense for The Last Jedi. Do you get that vibe?
No, I think it's more of an explanation. I mean, a lot of times to kind of figure out the minutia of the Star Wars universe, you have to go to the literature. You've got a Star Wars encyclopedia up there. You've got to go to the visual guide, the ship's guide, the people's guide. And there have been, I mean, I had them when I was a kid too. So there's lots of different encyclopedia type resources out there. And I just think this is a neat way for other people to learn the stuff without having to delve in on a $20, $25 book.
I agree with that. And this was HeroicHollywood.com had this story.
Okay.
We grabbed it from StarWarsNews.com.
They're just great over there.
Yep, StarWarsNewsNet.com. Check them out. Next topic on Stash It or Blast It. Wait, Stash It or Blast It. Do you stash or blast the the explanation behind the Force connection?
I'll stash it.
Okay.
You know, I think it worked.
I'll stash it too.
I'll keep it.
I'll stash it too. I loved every element of it. I think that's one of the 3 best parts of The Last Jedi.
And it still gives me hope that Snoke is Plagueis. Because after Snoke died, we get one more Force connection when Rey closes that door to the Millennium Falcon. So I don't think he's dead.
You're adorable. All right, hey, let's go into the next topic of Stash or Blast It. Kevin Smith thinks the Millennium Falcon will be destroyed in Episode 9. This was a recent interview that Kevin Smith did, and he talks about how so far the Disney trilogy has been about killing your childhood, essentially. So what would be more grueling to do than destroy the Millennium Falcon? I think the point's made in there that he's like, you keep Chewbacca around. Chewbacca can be 500 years old, but you can destroy the Falcon. David, you read this interview. You read the quote about him, how he thinks that they're going to destroy the Falcon. Do you think that's really an option?
Yeah. David, how old is your car?
4 years.
And you just fixed your back bumper because it was falling off. The front bumper's falling
Well,
off. How much have you tried to fix on your car?
Well,
it's 5 years old. The Millennium Falcon, by my count, is at least 80 years old at this point in the Skywalker saga. How the hell is this thing still flying to begin with?
That hunk of junk.
How is it outrunning new equipment?
It's that great of a ship.
You
You
know,
know, it's a Corellian freighter. You know, that's how. Damn it. I mean, you are right. It is probably an older model. And also about my car, drunk teenagers rear-ended me. That was not my fault.
Sure.
But it is so iconic, and I love seeing Rey pilot that thing. What ship are you gonna give her? I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's one thing.
Newer model?
Yeah, I guess I really do get it. The Falcon is disposable, but like if that thing goes, I mean that's really the end of the original trilogy because you already know that we're probably gonna get a funeral scene, or it's just gonna be alluded to. Leia's dead in Episode 9, so all that's really gonna remain is gonna be C-3PO, R2-D2, and the Falcon.
And all 3 of those technologies are at least 80+ years old.
Does R2 and C-3PO like ever get blown up?
God, I really hope they don't.
That's my thing. I think it would be more heartbreaking for the droids to be destroyed
than Millennium Falcon. Especially R2-D2.
I mean, that guy's a hero. But he's also a bit of a criminal because, and I brought this up to you before, the guy saves the queen in, the droid saved the queen in Phantom Menace, right? But shouldn't he be charged with, like, assisted homicide? Because, like, he flew Anakin to the temple in Revenge of the Sith. Vader kills all those Jedi. You know, like, R2-D2 has enabled a lot of death.
I guess he's partly responsible for helping blow up the Death Star.
Well, that's fine, though, because they're bad people. And we don't care about
Twice.
them. Okay. It's a couple million lives.
I mean, really, who's got the biggest kill count there? Is it Luke or is it R2-D2?
I think it's R2-D2. I think that's my whole point.
Yeah.
That son of a gun. Pretty impressive for a droid with a tripod leg.
Do you think he, like, runs processes to keep count of how many people he's killed?
I would like to imagine in that eyeglass that R2 has, He's got a little column on the far left the top left corner where it's just like stormtrooper helmets and TIE pilot helmets, and maybe battle droids, and it's just like the count, and it just keeps
tally marks.
Yeah, tally marks. Yeah. Well, tallies will take up a lot of space. I think it's just numerical. But yeah, okay, cool. So that was a fun conversation. I hope Kevin Smith is wrong, but I kind of like how this conversation went. Where maybe ultimately the Falcon does blow up, but you know what? Ships blow up all the time. But just don't kill off our droids.
But David,
Yeah.
if they do blow up the Millennium Falcon, we could get a blown up Millennium Falcon Lego set out of it.
Oh my god, that would be so frustrating, but so Lego to do. Well, you know it's okay. So this is about to be a tangent. Lego released that freaking ATST from The Last Jedi, the one that BB-8 drives.
Yeah.
Okay, so they give you an ATST without the cabin. It's just the chicken walker with R2D with the BB-8 on top.
That's it.
The set is literally an incomplete set, and people are buying it. I'm a member of a couple of groups on Facebook, for example, and all these people are so excited. Look at the set that I just got. I got Rose as a minifigure.
Dumb. But I'm also really picky about my Legos too.
I just think that was I hated that sequence too in the first place. I hated the fact that BB-8 was controlling an ATSD going around. It was very stupid.
When are you gonna get something and make poor decisions and build something while I build my Krennic shuttle? Because I'm waiting for you.
Well, I think I'm buying a Krennic shuttle of my own.
Okay.
Is that okay, or do I have to? If I don't do that, I'm gonna get the U-wing.
No, get the Krennic shuttle.
Okay, I'm
That's
gonna
really
do that.
cool. That's why I bought it.
I think it's gonna be a February thing.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's gonna be a February thing. We'll do that.
Tax refund.
Tax refund. That's gonna do it for blast or stash it. We stashed that, right? Or we blasted the Falcon's gonna blow up.
Blast it up, so blow up the Falcon.
Okay, so you stashed that it's gonna blow up at 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna blast it. I think it's gonna stick around. I think it's just gonna keep being passed on through the generations. I wanted Luke's lightsaber to be passed around through the generations, and we all know how that went. Okay, so let's go into our favorite segment of the show, Fan Comlink. This is where you, the fans, I guess that's kind of arrogant for us to say, but you watch us, the viewer submitted questions. I guess it's kind of bold for me to be like, you're a fan of the show. I mean, I'm assuming you are at this point. You're 26 episodes deep, real deep. Okay, hey, so the first question comes from our good friend Brandon. I got tongue-tied over you, Brandon. Insane Soul on Twitter. And he asks us, do you think we'll get a Darth Vader standalone film? I think that's a really fascinating question because if we had... I think we're going to get him in the Han Solo movie. I think there is somehow going to be a scene with Vader. And I think it would be kind of fun to see Vader pop up through the standalone movies while they exist in that Vader era. But... I don't know.
I don't think so because if they
You don't think so?
If they give us a Vader movie,
Okay.
Vader becomes the protagonist of that movie as a bad guy, which means they somehow have to get us to empathize with him so he justifies his actions for doing what he's doing when he's at his darkest.
See, I think here's why I don't think we're gonna get a Vader standalone, because I think what I want to see with Vader in a standalone Vader movie is what we're gonna hopefully get with an Obi-Wan movie, which is there's that line that Vader has in the original trilogy. He's like, you once thought as Obi-Wan did, but you don't know the power of the dark side. Well, how does that work? What was the run-in where Ben tried to convert Vader back? We never get that. It's not on Mustafar. On Mustafar, he thinks he's leaving Anakin for dead. There's some point in that 21, 22-year gap that he learned, or 19-year gap, whatever it is, that he learns that Vader is Anakin, and he needs to go and try and redeem his friend, and fails.
But it can't be recent, because when we finally get to them on the Death Star, he says he feels a presence he hasn't felt for a long time. So when they do have that encounter, it's got to be older. Maybe that's where we get our young Obi-Wan movie.
Yeah, and here's what I'm thinking, too, is if it's close to Revenge of the Sith, and then A New Hope, which I think has to be, because I think that's what you're alluding to.
Yep.
Does it happen where Vader thinks he's leaving Obi-Wan for dead? You know, because like Obi-Wan kind of has a limp in A New Hope. If you watch him walk, he kind of has a limp. Could it be a case where Darth Vader thinks that he has killed his master, leaves him for dead, blows out on a Labata-class shuttle, and then you get to A New Hope where he's like, oh my God, I haven't felt that since I thought I killed that guy.
Yeah.
He's still around, and he's
You know
here.
what? I'd be okay with that. 'Cause if we can get him in the Solo movie where maybe he has a run-in with Lando and scares the shit out of him, and that's why he goes to Cloud City. We get him in the Obi-Wan movie where there's an opportunity for redemption and he leaves him for dead. I would be perfectly fine if we just have 1 or 2 scenes in a movie where he just does something really badass, reminds us of why he's a bad guy, and why it's so impressive that Luke turns him in Return of the Jedi. I'd be happy with that as opposed to a single Vader movie.
I think if you treat Vader like a seasoning on a piece of chicken, you know what I'm saying? And you just put, and it doesn't need to be ranch. It could be Italian seasoning or garlic powder. I think if you just treat them just a little bit, and you just put them a little bit in all the standalones,
I'm okay with
I
that.
think that's going to serve the overall Star Wars story better, because he's not supposed to be this character that, like, not everybody knows about Vader. He's kind of like a myth. He's like, he works in the shadows, but those who have encountered Vader are terrified of him. So like I said, sprinkle him here and there consistently throughout, and I think fans will really rejoice. Look at the reaction he got with Rogue One. I mean, could you have used a couple more minutes of Vader slashing on the battlefield? Sure.
But it makes me wanting more.
But it makes you want more, and that's why I'd rather leave wanting more. Like, I'm satisfied wanting more. I don't want to have to leave and feel like I have to come back and wish I could have gotten a larger dose.
Yep.
It'll work out. I'm excited to see what happens there. Great question, Brandon. Thanks for sending that in. And if you ever have a question related to Star Wars, let us know by tweeting us at Beyond the Blast Doors. It's at BTBD_podcast. Or simply just use the hashtag Beyond the Blast Doors. If you use hashtag Beyond the Blast Doors, we'll pull that question up on the next episode and give you a shout out. Staying on target. It's the last topic of the show, as always. And David, ladies first, what do you have your targeting system on?
I don't want to say, because you're going to make fun of me, because you're going to be like, oh, it's going to be the Darth Vader comic again.
Is it the Darth Vader comic?
No.
What is it?
So when we were heading out to Colorado, we put on the audiobook from a certain point of view.
Yes.
And a lot of those stories were rubbish. So now I want to wrap it up and see if the rest of the stories are shit.
Okay. It gets better. We spent a lot of time on Mos Eisley, which is a little
I
ridiculous.
didn't need any of that. Anything with the sand crawler, the
Jawas.
Jawas, the droids blowing themselves
The
up,
emotionally
the
conflicted sand people.
Everything in the Mos Eisley cantina.
There was like
and
3 stories back to back to back about how they have like a gambling addiction and they're running away from Jabba, and Boba Fett shows up and Greedo's a dick, and I mean that's essentially what we spent like 45 minutes listening to.
Had it been longer than that.
Good Lord.
I
But
mean, my God, the one story, like, cause I was in the middle of the one with Jad,
Right.
The Jawa,
Yeah.
and I was halfway through it. So we started listening to that. You kept saying fast forward, and it was like another 25 minutes before the damn thing was over.
It was a long chapter.
Oh my God.
Well, 40 short stories. Short is a relative term.
So my next story should be at the Death Star.
Yeah, but I'll tell you,
That better be good.
you can't skip the beginning though, because that Obi-Wan Qui-Gon Jinn short story is killer. And there's other stories in there, like you get Krennic's death from Krennic's perspective.
Really?
That's a really good story that's in there.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
No?
we didn't get to listen to that one.
Okay.
But there are some real treats throughout that book. So it's one of those things where I don't think it's the right book to listen to the audiobook. I know that they brought in all these different voice actors to do the audiobook. I don't care. I think it's a book where you just read it. You'll get more bang for your buck, and you'll get more enjoyment out of that book by reading it yourself. A good audiobook, though, is The Leia, Princess of Alderaan. I'm almost finished with it, but I've read more than I've listened to. But both good reads, just how you consume them is up to you. So that's your Staying on Target. That's pretty solid pick.
Wrapping it up.
I appreciate you wrapping it up. That's a good lesson to follow in a lot of scenarios in real life. But no, I'm proud of you for picking something different than Star Wars. Or Darth Vader. It has to be Star Wars. We're on a Star Wars show. David, where are you? I'm here. Okay, so my Staying on Target is James Arnold Taylor's YouTube channel. I'm an Uber fan. I mean, I'll admit it. The guy is my voicemail. Okay, you call my phone and it's James Arnold Taylor saying my name. It's just great. It's awesome. I'm a fanboy. But he's picked back up Clone Wars Conversations and has a really good episode out there. It's with Phil Lamar, and so it's a 2-parter, and it's just a lot of fun. I love those interviews because it gives you a glimpse back into that series. And like I said, it's been like a decade since it first launched, and it's just a really great job. James is a really great interviewer. He did Star Wars Weekends. He does stuff with Celebration, and he has his own YouTube channel now where he does all these things. And I know that last year you heard me talk about these quite a bit, but they average about an hour in length, and they give you some really good insight, and then you learn about what other projects these actors have been involved with. So you can check those works out too, and I think that's really great that James allows the promotion of the actor themselves, because I don't know, if you think James Arnold Taylor, you either think Obi-Wan Kenobi or Ratchet. So it's kind of cool to see like these other sides of these characters. Really enjoyable, and if you haven't checked out that channel, checked out that series on his channel, be sure you do so, and leave him a comment, say that you found out about him through Beyond the Blast Doors. I think he'd get a kick out of that. Hey man,
Cool.
that's the end of episode 26. It was pretty smooth,
Yep.
pretty smooth sailing, really enjoyable, under an hour. That's how we like to do it. 2018, it's the year of the efficient shows. What did you have something you want to say?
We're going to Comic-Con soon, right?
Yeah, in February we're going to St. Louis. Wizard World got our media credentials approved, so that's kind of cool.
Really neat.
Like we're doing something that's good enough to get media credentials at a con, so that's fun. So we're gonna go there. I think we're gonna have a chance to interview Stan Lee,
So cool.
Sebastian Stan, who's the Winter Soldier, and hopefully a future Luke in a future Luke movie. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and excited to pass out stickers. And promote the show there. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, especially when you think about that event, and then if we decide to go to C2E2 in Chicago in April, that could be a lot of fun. That's a huge con. It's a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be going to be exciting. And if you're going to be in the St. Louis area, if you're going to go to Wizard World, you let us know, and we'll meet up with you. We'd love to visit and say hi. And I think with that, I mean, that's the end of our show. It's been a crazy couple of weeks because so our episode last week kind of got hot and got viewed by almost 1,000 people.
That's neat.
And then our conversation on Colin Trevorrow having Luke in his episode 9 script, that thing trended on YouTube. It was pretty cool. It's got like 5.5 thousand views right now.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And so
I promise I'm not all my mother.
yeah. So I guess
Only one view.
if you're watching the show, thank you so much for supporting us. And if you're one of those awesome people sharing our episodes and sharing our content, thank you so much, because it's really fun to see something that we do take off. And we're just having a lot of fun. Doing this here in 2018. That is going to do it for this episode 26 of Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure you keep a lookout on our channel for the announcement of our 300 subscriber contest winner. It's going to be a lot of fun. We had like 25, 30 different videos we had to sift through, and we've picked a victor. So be on the lookout for that video. And as always, anything Star Wars you want to talk about, be sure you hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you really believe in what we do on this show, find us on Patreon. We've now launched a Patreon account. We don't expect you to donate. We think of it more as a subscription. But if you believe in what we're doing and want to help us elevate to the next level, then there's a way on there that you can help support us. We'll see you soon.